What is up, YouTube? Cam the Token Trans here, bringing you a brand new video. It has been a while since I've created content for you guys, and I apologize for that. Between depression and moving, it's just been a hard time. I do have a pretty light-hearted video coming on the way. It's a huge video, so it's been kind of an undertaking between the first couple edit pass-throughs, and then Miriam is helping me with a more tedious portion of the video, and it's been a task and a half. But I'm really excited about the video, and it'll be fun when we do finally get to upload it to both of our channels. And obviously I uploaded a stream that was me playing Coral Island, which is an early access farming sim game, which is really fun and I highly recommend you check out. Today is something that I am super excited for, and is something that I've wanted to do since I've learned that these exist. Anybody who really knows me knows that I am like obsessed with true crime, not in the oh my god I want to have Jeffrey Dahmer's babies sort of way, and not in an ignoring the victims sort of way, but more in a why would a person do this sort of way. And I also like boosting the names of like the victims and things, because victims deserve recognition because they did not ask to be murdered. And I really hate that a lot of the culture around true crime obsession is ignoring or erasing the victims, especially in a case like the Jeffrey Dahmer case, in which they were all queer men of color, or just men of color. There were some that weren't queer, and it's just kind of bullshit. I will say that if you are vehemently against true crime culture, you might not want to watch this video because of that. I learned a while back that there are true crime trading cards, and when I first learned about it, I looked high and low for packs of them and I couldn't find them, and it eventually became something that I was like, well, it's nice to know it exists, but I'm probably never going to get my hands on it. Halloween weekend, my partner and my best friend and his wife all went to an oddities expo in Seattle, where one of the vendors had packs of the true crime cards. And then I found somebody on Etsy who had entire boxes of the cards, and I bought a few packs of each of the like sets of cards. So today's video is going to be me opening these trading cards, which I'm really, really excited for. And I hope you guys enjoy as well. So as you see, I have a lot because I am really excited. So we're going to start with the true crime base set. Each set includes 12 cards, and it covers G-men, mass murderers, serial killers, and gangsters. So let's see what we get. Okay. See if I can actually get them open. I have trouble opening Pokemon cards too. Peter von Francius. I'm sure I butchered that. Okay, that is very blurry. On September 25th, 1925, Spike O'Donnell flattened as Frankie McErlin sped by. Bullets sprang wildly over the corner of 63rd and Western. O'Donnell walked away from the shooting unharmed, and unaware he had survived the first Chicago gang shooting involving a Thompson submachine gun. A month later, after practicing with the novel weapon, McErlin returned. This time, he successfully wounded O'Donnell's brother, and a new, deadly era in gang warfare had begun. The Thompson submachine gun weighed 8.5 pounds and could fire up to 1,000 .45 caliber pistol cartridges per minute. At close range, it could pierce quarter-inch steel armor plate or cut a man in half. Since the Thompson was a totally new type of weapon, no existing gun statutes regulated it. and anyone could buy one by mail or from a sporting goods store. In 1925, the average Thompson retailed for $175. Can you fucking imagine buying a gun for less than a Nintendo Switch? That is ridiculous. Northwestern University Law School alumnus, National Rifle Association member, and son and owner of Sports Inc., a legitimate sporting goods store on Chicago's North Side, Peter von Francius specialized in arming the city's criminals. As the Thompson gained in popularity, von Francius became the area's chief supplier. Al Capone was fascinated by the destructive power of McGurlin's Tommy gun. Oh, I didn't know that Tommy gun was short for something. That's really interesting. And acquired Thompsons for his own men. Capone's purchases were always legal. Crooked judges issued gun permits for Capone and his mobsters. Several members of the gang, including Capone, carried actual Cook County deputy badges, complete with the right to bear arms. See Card 9, Jaime Weiss. Interesting. Elliot Ness. Cool. Okay. In 1929, newly elected President Herbert Hoover, pressured by Chicago's business community, instructed Treasury Secretary Andrew Mellon to get Al Capone. A dual strategy was created. Internal Revenue agents investigated Capone's taxes, while Prohibition agents attacked his sources of illegal revenue. Elliot Ness was 26 years old when assigned to head the Special Prohibition Task Force on the recommendation of his brother-in-law, Department of Justice agent Alexander Jamie. Ness represented a new breed of law enforcement officials. He had graduated from the University of Chicago and studied under August Vollmer, father of modern scientific criminology. Cool. Ness had also worked the streets of Chicago's tough South Side as a skip tracer for the retail credit company. Ness assembled a team of incorruptible Prohibition agents who began their raids while Capone was still in a Philadelphia jail on a 10-month sentence. By the time Capone was released in May 1930, Ness had raided 19 breweries and 6 distilleries, destroying $1 million worth of booze, trucks, and equipment. Jesus Christ. Ness and his agents were dubbed the Untouchables when they refused the customary large bribes offered any new agents in Chicago. Realizing Capone's larger-than-life reputation could be punctured, Ness called a press conference to reveal that the team had refused the bribes. He used the resultant media attention both to weaken Capone's image and to divert attention from the IRS campaign to nail Capone on tax fraud. But Capone had just begun to fight. 1930 would be the toughest year for Elliot Ness. See Card 20, The Untouchables. So fucking cool. Oh my god. Any of my Supernatural fans, Elliot Ness was in an episode of Supernatural, and the actor who played him was fucking hot. Frank Jelly Nash. In 1930, Frank Nash was arrested for shooting a fellow thief in the back, killing him. Acquitted of this crime, Nash immediately murdered a witness who had testified against him. For this, he was sentenced to life in prison, but in 1918 his sentence was shortened and he was pardoned. Shortly thereafter, he robbed an Oklahoma bank and was sentenced to 25 years in jail. In less than 2 years, his sentence was reduced and he was again freed. He then spent 8 months robbing banks with the Al Spencer gang in Oklahoma, and August 20, 1923, helped hold up a mail train. For this, he was again sent to prison, this time to Leavenworth and without chance of parole. Nash once again acted the model prisoner, becoming a trustee. In October 1930, he was assigned an errand outside the prison and walked away. He got a nose job, grew a mustache, wore a wig, and moved to Chicago, where he ran a beer joint for Al Capone. There he met gunman Vern Miller, from whom he learned that Hot Springs, Arkansas had become a favored criminal resort and hideout protected by a crooked police force. Nash and his future wife soon moved to Hot Springs, from which he robbed banks in several states, working with the Barker Corpus and other gangs. FBI agents searching Hot Springs for Nash caught him on June 16, 1933, at the White Front Pool Room, but incredibly, the corrupt Hot Springs police broadcast that Nash had been nabbed by mobsters, and the FBI had to dodge armed posses of state police in their race to get Nash to Kansas City for a train back to Leavenworth Prison. See Card 31, The Kansas City Massacre. Just happens to be the next card that I have. Kansas City Massacre. On June 16th, 1933, after several near battles with Arkansas State Police who believed that he was a mobster kidnapping an honest citizen, FBI agent Joe Lackey called the Bureau's regional office in Kansas City to tell them he was bringing escaped outlaw Frank Jelly Nash to Union Station, from whence he would be returned to Leavenworth Prison. The Kansas City FBI office then called upon local police for support since, at that time, the FBI did not carry guns. Involving the Kansas City police proved to be fatal, for they were part of the crooked Pendergast political machine. Within minutes, Nash's criminal friend Vern Miller knew of the FBI's plan and had organized a group to meet Nash at the station. The next day, as the FBI agents, accompanied by 2 armed Kansas City cops, began moving Nash to the train, 3 armed men appeared and opened fire with submachine guns, killing Nash and 4 lawmen. FBI agent Lackey was wounded. Why was Nash among those massacred? Some say Miller's alleged accomplices, Charles Pretty Boy Floyd and Adam Ricchetti, accidentally killed Nash because he was sitting in the driver's seat and they mistook him for an FBI agent. Others believe that Miller's accomplices were instead 2 local gunmen who had been hired by the Kansas City mob to ensure Nash's eternal silence. One thing is sure, the local mob removed the guns from the patrol car belonging to the cops who guarded Nash. Miller was later found dead in a Detroit ditch, presumably killed because a national manhunt for him had caused too much heat. Ricchetti was convicted for involvement in the massacre and died in the gas chamber. See card 32, Charles Pretty Boy Floyd. I might have to do a series of these videos because I want to be able to read each card, and I have a lot. Arnold Rothstein. Arnold Rothstein was born in 1882 in New York City. By the age of 20, he was a skilled gambler who had made millions through bookmaking, card playing, and crap shooting. When several Chicago White Sox players took bribes to throw the 1990 World Series, he was implicated but not indicted for his role in the affair. Dubbed the Brain, or Mr. Big by the press, Rothstein was known as AR to the underworld. His bankroll solved cash flow problems for New York bookies, and he soon owned a percentage of most of Midtown Manhattan's gambling dens. He financed gangster John Legs Diamond, and in return, Diamond protected his clubs from attacks by Dutch Schultz. His own upper-class gambling house, with a sideline and prostitution, attracted men of power and influence. Rothstein traded gambling debts or personal loans to politicians, judges, and cops in return for favors for local gangsters. If the fix worked, the debtor never had to pay him back. Investing heavily in the drug trade, AR used European contacts to import dope, which he sold to Lucky Luciano and other mobsters. He dabbled in bootlegging, financing shipments of European scotch, but soon sold his liquor interest to Waxy Gordon. From 1920 to 1928, New York had 6,902 liquor-related criminal cases. 400 never made it to trial, and 6,074 were dismissed. Most of the free bootleggers had Rothstein as their bondsman. In 1928, Rothstein, losing heavily at cards, delayed payment of $320,000 he had lost in one of gambler George Hump McManus's poker games. On November 4th, he was found shot in the stomach in a back stairway of McManus's hotel. He died 2 days later. See card 43, John Legs Diamond. Interesting. I really like the art on these a lot. Virginia Hill, born in 1916 to a poor Alabama family, ran away to Chicago during the 1933 World's Fair to take a job as a scantily clad sideshow dancer. She remained in the city afterward, and in 1934, while working as a waitress, she met Joe Epstein, a bookie who ran a wire room for the Fichettis, Al Capone's cousins. Epstein fell in love with Hill, and she became his mistress. She also became his racetrack contact, placing $50,000 bets with Epstein's instructions in order to change betting odds. In time, she began carrying large quantities of cash for Epstein to pay off bookies in other states. Betting couriers were often were shaken down for cash by corrupt cops or by rival mobsters, but in the male-dominated world of the mafia, no one expected a woman to be ferrying money. So Virginia Hill traveled unsuspected, carrying information and cash between key members of the National Syndicate. During this time, she also became lovers with mobsters Joe Adonis, Meyer Lansky, and Frank Costello. In the late 1930s, Hill moved to Hollywood, where she tried unsuccessfully to enter pictures. In the early 1940s, Joe Adonis introduced her to Bugsy Siegel, and the two embarked on a passionate, enduring affair. In 1947, Hill realized Siegel was in trouble with the mob due to his mismanagement of the Flamingo Casino in Las Vegas. She could not help him, though, and while she was vacationing in Paris, Siegel was executed in her living room. Hill's testimony before the Kefauver Congregational Investigation of Crime in 1951 finally made her a star, but she died a suicide in 1966. See card 54, Louis Lepke Buchalter. She's really pretty. Juan Corona. Born in 1933 in Mexico, migrant farm worker Juan Corona came to the U.S. and was diagnosed as schizophrenic in 1950. By the 1960s, he was a farm labor contractor in the orchards of California. Corona first came to police attention in 1970 when a young Mexican man was attacked in a cafe owned by his homosexual half-brother. The victim had suffered machete wounds. Corona was married with children, but may have been bisexual. His half-brother allegedly returned to Mexico after the incident. Corona's behavior was secretive, and rumors of his traveling the roads at night picking up male hitchhikers surprised no one. His crimes would probably have gone undetected, but in May 1971, a group of mysterious graves was discovered by a neighboring farmer in his own orchards. Police found the bodies of 25 males of various adult ages, all sexually molested, stabbed, and mutilated after death by machete wounds to the head. The victims were identified as transients and had been killed within the previous 5 or 6 weeks, according to forensic investigators. Blood-stained rubber boots and a machete found in his car, as well as ledger book entries in his handwriting listing names of some of the victims, led to the 38-year-old Corona's arrest. Corona pleaded not guilty, but was convicted of all the murders in 1971 and sentenced to 25 consecutive life terms. Fucking good. Some investigators said they thought the killings had been committed by 2 men, but despite police recommendations for further investigation and the machete assault incident involving Corona's half-brother in 1970, no charges have been brought against any accomplice in the case. Next card, Gerald Gallego and Charlene Williams. I'm definitely going to be doing a series of these. I'm going to open 1 pack per video, I think. I think that is a good balance. I feel like this would be a good, buffer for when I actually start working on trans-related videos again, because that is still what I want my YouTube channel to be about. Mostly is, trans-related things, reviews of trans-related media, queer-related media, that kind of thing. I don't want this to become a random opening YouTube channel. I don't want it to become just a home for the VODs of my streams or whatever. I want to start making trans-related content again. I still have to finish my Let's Play series of Tell Me Why. I have books that I've read that I really want to do video reviews of. I recently bound my chest with tape again. I would love to do a video about that and kind of pros and cons and tips. That's especially super fresh because I just took the tape off today and I definitely have thoughts. But that's the type of content that you came to my channel for, and seeing the VODs of my streams and large gaps without content, and then these card openings. I don't want you to think that I am straying from the trans related thing. I am still the token trans. I still want to make that kind of content. It's just getting back into making content after not for so long, and realizing that I have ADHD and dealing with my depression and my anxiety and everything. It's a hard thing to balance. So I don't want you to think that I'm going anywhere. I do plan on making more videos. It's just, I need patience for me to get back into a schedule, for me to, figure out where I was in like the scripts and stuff that I was writing, and I have books that I've read that I still really need to like write up my review of and all of that. And slowly but surely I will start churning out content again. I will start churning out trans related specific content again. I am coming back. I'm sorry that's taken so long, but I'm looking forward to making more content for you guys. But anyway, I'm going to continue going through the cards. So this is Arnold Palmer. Sorry, this is William Palmer. Arnold Palmer is somebody completely different. Really good half lemonade, half tea. That shit's bomb. Anyway, William Palmer was born in 1824 and raised in a wealthy English family. As a child, he preferred torturing animals to playing with his expensive toys. Family connections got him an apprenticeship in a chemist shop, but he was soon fired for theft. However, he qualified as a member of the Royal College of Surgeons and opened a private practice. Oh, good lord, don't like where this is going. As Palmer's reputation for gambling, womanizing, drinking, theft, and embezzlement grew, he decided to marry in an effort to appear stable. His wedding to a wealthy heiress took place in 1847, but when children started to arrive in the family, Palmer found them annoying and too expensive to keep. All 6 of his children died as infants, and in light of later developments, he is suspected of having poisoned them, although this was never proven in court. I bet he fucking did. Palmer's addiction to fast living and heavy gambling cost him dearly, and he found himself continually in debt. He poisoned his mother-in-law and his wife for the inheritance money, but it was not enough, so he then poisoned his brother after taking out a large insurance policy on him. With close family members all dead, Palmer went to the source of his problems, poisoning those to whom he owed money. For some reason, I thought it was going to say that he poisoned himself, because really, he is the root of his problems. But, I don't think he's ready to admit that yet. This activity could not go unnoticed forever. People began to talk of the many deaths surrounding the no-good Palmer, and eventually authorities listened. Palmer was reportedly the first killer to use strychnine. Was reportedly the first killer to use strychnine. While suspected of causing many more deaths, he was officially charged with 14 murders by poison. He was convicted and died by hanging in 1856 at the age of 32. Next card, 76, Jeffrey Dahmer. For those who have seen Repo, A Genetic Opera, he reminds me of... My brain is telling me it's YB, but that's Coraline. Rotti Largo. Something about him reminds me of Rotti Largo. Like his face, specifically, the way he looks in that art. Charles Whitman. Charles Whitman was born in 1941, and his life began to fall apart in the spring of 1966. The 25-year-old ex-Marine, devoted to his family, was devastated when his parents decided to divorce. He began to act oddly, breaking into fits of violence and complaining of severe headaches. He sought psychiatric counseling, but his mother and his wife attributed his behavior change to the stress of his heavy class load at the University of Texas at Austin. On July 31st, Whitman wrote a note which read, "I am prepared to die. After my death, I wish an autopsy on me to be performed to see if there is any mental disorder." That night, he stabbed and shot his mother to death at her house. Returning home, he stabbed his wife to death and wrote a diatribe against his abusive father that closed with the words, "Life is not worth living." The next morning, he packed sandwiches, toilet paper, a transistor radio, several pistols and ammunition, and headed for the campus. Entering the observation tower, he killed a receptionist with a blow to the head. 2 people he encountered on the stairwell were shot dead at point-blank range. Whitman settled himself on the top of the tower and, after several minutes of contemplation, opened fire on the unsuspecting students below. Within an hour and a half, during which the expert marksman picked off anything that moved, 16 people were dead and 30 wounded. Police were unable to reach him and finally decided to charge. In the gun battle that ensued, Whitman was mowed down. His requested autopsy revealed a tumor in the hypothalamus region of the brain. an area directly related with violent behavior and judgment. Jesus Christ. Next card, 87, Henry Lee Lucas. Marie Hilly. In 1975, Alabama native Marie Hilly was a married woman with 2 teenage children when her husband Frank died at 45 of infectious hepatitis. She got $31,140 in life insurance. Hilly was known for spending beyond her means and had a persecution complex. For 2 years, she told police she was receiving harassing phone calls and claimed her house was constantly burglarized. In 1978, Hilly insured her 18-year-old daughter for $25,000. In 1979, the daughter was stricken with an unknown wasting disease, and the solicitous Hilly brought the girl her favorite dishes in the hospital. When the girl casually mentioned that Hilly had given injections to her late father, and her late maternal grandmother, police became suspicious. The daughter's urine tested positive for arsenic. Hilly was arrested for check fraud and questioned about her girl's poisoning. Her late husband and mother were exhumed, and arsenic was found in their remains. When arsenic pills were found in her jewelry box, Hilly was charged with the attempted murder of her daughter. She jumped bail and was indicted in her absence for the murder of her husband. Hilly then embarked on a double life. She remarried in 1980 and lived in New Hampshire, but as authorities searched for her, she went to Houston, faked her own death, and returned to New Hampshire as her own identical twin sister, Terry Martin, to console her grieving husband. Arrested in 1983, she returned as her twin sister to comfort her husband. What the fuck is wrong with you? Arrested in 1983, Hilly pleaded innocent but was found guilty of murder and attempted murder. She was sentenced to 20 years plus life, escaped in 1987, and was found 4 days later suffering from exposure, from which she died. Next card, 98, Jerome Brudos. Fucking good lord. Oh, Marie Hilly, aka Terry Martin. Okay. Constanzo and Aldrete. Adolfo Constanzo and Sarah Aldrete. Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo, Jesus Christ, I am way too white for that name, born in Florida in 1962, was the beloved child of a Cuban immigrant family that practiced voodoo and witchcraft. Fucking awesome! A charismatic individual who wanted the best from life, at the age of 27, he became the mastermind of a drug ring that moved huge amounts of marijuana into the U.S. He commuted between Miami, Brownsville, Texas, and Matamoros, Mexico. Sarah Aldrete was born in 1964 in Matamoros. Her father was an electrician, and her family lived fairly well. Highly intelligent and an excellent student, Aldrete wanted to improve her economic lot. She married briefly, then applied for resident alien status in the U.S., and enrolled in Texas Southmost College in Brownsville. Aldrete met Constanzo, Jesus Christ, in Matamoros in 1986 and became a convert to his religious mix of voodoo, witchcraft, and violence. Constanzo El Padrino, the Godfather, and Aldrete La Bruja, the Witch, presided together over ritual slayings and ceremonies attended by a small group of followers. Police did not suspect their involvement in a local disappearance or in drug smuggling. In 1989, a 21-year-old college student was abducted from Brownsville. Students often partied in Matamoros, and police followed the missing man's trail to the Santa Elena Ranch, 20 miles west of the town. There, they found the mutilated bodies of 13 victims, but Constanzo and Aldrete had fled. Soon, 2 more bodies were found on a neighboring farm. Constanzo and Aldrete eluded police for nearly a month. With capture imminent, they engaged police in a shootout in Mexico City, during which Constanzo was killed. Aldrete was arrested and sentenced to life in a Mexican jail. Next card, 109, Psychology of the Sociopathic Killer. Jaime Weiss. That name also sounds kind of familiar. I might need to readjust, my setup for this, but Jaime Weiss. Jaime Weiss, oh my god. That is a very Polish last name. We're not even going to attempt to pronounce that. When Dion O'Banion was killed in 1924, Jaime Weiss, born Earl Walczykowski in Poland in 1898, took over his gang and swore vengeance on the killers of his best friend. John Torrio had put out the contract on O'Banion. He was badly wounded by gunmen in January 1925, leaving Al Capone in charge of his mob. That same month, Weiss, Bugs Moran, and Shemer Drucci had sprayed Capone's limousine with shotgun blasts, wounding the driver. Capone had left the car seconds before the attack. An ensuing gang war cost Weiss over 30 gunmen. Twice in August 1926, he and Drucci were almost killed in attacks outside the Standard Oil building. On September 20th, Weiss struck back. Capone and Frankie Rio were lunching at the Hawthorne Inn when they heard the roar of a speeding car and the clatter of a machine gun. They raced to the door, seeing no bullet holes. Rio realized the first shots had been blanks and tackled Capone as a 10-car single-file cavalcade turned the corner, sprouted machine guns, and opened fire. The attack devastated the hotel facade, riddling parked cars and wounding 3 innocent diners. Weiss used Dion O'Banion's floor shop as his headquarters. Early in October, new rumors moved into the second-floor apartment next door. On October 11th, Weiss returned from watching jury selection for the trial of the gang leader Joe Saltis. Weiss's car pulled up in front of Holy Name Cathedral across from the florist shop. As Weiss crossed the street, gunfire burst from the second-story apartment, and he fell, killed instantly by 10 bullets. His bodyguard, Patty Murray, was also killed, and 3 others were wounded. See card 10, John Steege. So that was the first installment of my 10 video series of opening these cards. I am really excited to see more. Most of these were names that I didn't actually recognize, so that was pretty cool. I knew about Elliot Ness. I knew vaguely about the Kansas City Massacre. I knew about this guy. I think this was the guy that I know about. Yeah, I know about Charles Whitman, and that's it. Although the names Costanzo and Aldrete were vaguely familiar, and Jaime Weiss also was vaguely familiar, but I didn't know where I recognized them from. But I'm really excited to open more of these cards, and I hope you guys continue watching this series, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!